Oh, Kevin got a few very large buyers circling right now, and Daniel just set up a listing appointment 2 minutes ago. Nice. Very productive. Way to go, Daniel. And Kevin, it's nice to have some buyers circling. Alex got two into escrow, both scheduled to close early. Sweet. Got a listing going live on Sunday in Hellsburg. Is that near Napa?
Galesburg, yeah, that's like North Sonoma County, east or west of Napa, like 30 minutes or so.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. I'll just read two more wins in the chat. Dawn got a new buyer into escrow and a listing appointment scheduled, and Rebecca got a PM contract signed. So way to go, everybody. Nice to hear those wins as we're coming on. And I'm excited for today's meeting because it's not just me kind of talking, it's getting to hear from a couple of the people on the team who have made working with investors a really big part of their business. And I'm excited to learn just as much as you guys are. So we're going to be talking a little bit with Kevin and Max and Daniel, all people on the team who have, I mean, obviously Kevin is the OG on the team, but Max and Daniel have also made working with investors a really big part of their business. And the thing that I find interesting is we all have very different approaches. So part of the reason for this call is kind of a guilty pleasure because I get to ask them some questions and learn a little bit from their methods. And then the other part of it is we've got a lot of newer agents on the team and a lot of people who are newer to working with investors or want to start working with investors. And if you're anything like me, when I first wanted to kind of get into working with investors, it was a little intimidating because I felt like I needed to know every single thing they were going to ask me, and they were going to see right through me because I was brand new and I didn't have all the answers. So I felt like it would be helpful to kind of get a little bit of information, see some different techniques, see how each of us has got into working with investors, whether that's fix and flippers or multifamily or a combination of both. So I'll start with a couple questions that I was going to ask all three of these guys, and if anybody has any answers, like feel free to chime in too, and then we'll get into some specifics. So this is for Kevin, Daniel, Max. I'll answer a little bit too, but curious what led to the decision to making with investors being a large part of your business. I know for some people they're trying to decide, do they make that kind of the route that they go, or do they work with traditional home buyers? I think most of us working with investors are doing both, but what was like the thing about working with investors that seemed interesting to you, and what led to you wanting to make that a big part of your business?
I could start. I'll say I love numbers, man. I love running all the numbers. I love looking at all the different outcomes and things like that. And so I like to have more of a numbers based, talk with my clients and basically try to remove a lot of emotion and just buy because of performance.
Yeah, that's a great point. Do you feel like because that's the way you naturally think, it's just a more natural conversation for you talking about the numbers and like profitability rather than, finding the right home that for someone that feels right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I guess, my background, I started at Marcus and Millichap for about a year working multifamily. And so that's kind of where I want to go, basically.
Okay, nice. I didn't know that about you. All right, Kevin.
For me, I think it's proximity to buyers. Realistically, the most people that I had in my database at the time, and it wasn't even an official CRM when I first started, were people that I connected with through the realm of signing them up for property management. And I wanted to get real estate commissions. So I had to find a product that those people would buy. And so for me, it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to be an investor. It's like, hey, it looks like this person buys duplexes. I want to be the one that sends them the next duplex. Right. And
No.
so it was filling a need that my market was experiencing. Obviously, my experience within the property management realm and it felt natural to me, but I had more close proximity to at the time when I started, I was probably in my early 20s, and through IP, doing the IP program, I had more access to people that trusted me as a investor person than, let's say, buyers that were looking for their home. So that's where
Yeah.
I kind of started, and that was my first opportunity.
And so how did you position yourself as that go-to agent when you wanted to make that change and be the person to bring them the next property? Was it just finding them deals and sending it to them, or what did it look like for your first couple of investor deals to have yourself be that go-to agent?
100%. I kind of worked things backwards. I was never the person that was going to say, like, they weren't hiring me. I wasn't their agent. So I wasn't going and saying, like, hey, what is it that you're looking for at first? Okay, let me go find that. It was more me just understanding, okay, well, this person has 2 duplexes in this town. Well, I bet if they had an opportunity for a third duplex or even a triplex or a quadplex or whatever, they might buy it. And so I'd look on the market the morning and I'd say, oh, shoot, a new duplex just popped up. How many people that I know that might be interested in buying a duplex? And I would send that out to 15 or so people that I knew. And let's say 2 of them said, yeah, tell me more info. And then I'd go a little deeper. So it was me trying to find inventory, then bringing it, like the sacrificial lamb, let me bring you this thing that you might want, make it to your attention. And then naturally over time, like eventually, if you bring somebody 5, 10 properties, even if they say no, let's say they're on Zillow and see something they want to see, it's a natural transition to, hey, what do you think of this one? And then my response was just always like, I think it's great. Let's go see it. Like,
Yeah.
let's go. Like, yeah, sure, I'm your realtor now. Let's go. And while we're at it, let's check out 2 more. And so it just kind of, I know I've said this to a lot of people before, but it's the whole like, hey, are we dating? Are we not dating? Like, just act like you're dating, and eventually you're moving in together, and there you go.
We had a great conversation about this on yesterday's call, which was about demonstrating value to people to earn their business. And Daniel was talking, and Max as well, and Don, a couple other people, about how when you're working with investors, it's normal for them to have a little bit of hesitancy to work with just one agent because they're looking for as many deals as possible. And so it's all about just being that person to bring them the property that they're going to buy and just demonstrating your value. And like you said, just treat it like you're dating, and someone else finds them a deal or someone else presents like a better option, then so be it. But really working and earning that business, I think is important. How selective were you being with properties? You said you were just sending people, like if you knew people that might be interested in a duplex, were you like running numbers and looking through it, or were you just seeing a duplex and shooting it out to them and letting them run their own analysis?
When I was 24 years old, I don't even know if I could run an analysis,
Yep.
right? I knew that, like, I could tell you, hey, 1 unit rents for 1,500, one rents for 2,000, and they're asking 400. Cool. And that was the extent of my analysis at that time. But realistically, I mean, I've tailored off of doing too detailed of an analysis anyway right now, because everybody has their own opinion of what they want. I'm not going to tell them like, oh, this is a good deal or not, because they all have different scenarios of things that they want to accomplish.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. And I think when I first started, I really got hung up on trying to like overanalyze properties and make sure it's the perfect one for the person. And then they would get back to me and the numbers would be way different because they had their own techniques. They had their own math, and they obviously like had way more experience than I did because they own a bunch of properties. And so I think that's one thing people get hung up on sometimes is trying to overanalyze something before they send it to a client. When I like the approach that you took, which is just send it to them, let them analyze it, and then if they ask questions, you can go find that information out. Max, what about you? What made you want to work with investors?
Well, I kind of and I've talked about this before, from my time in the car business when I switched from selling, sedans and little SUVs to selling pickup trucks and work trucks. And I kind of see it the same way with residential and commercial, your regular buyer and your investor buyer. And it's just more of a personality style kind of thing. I didn't get married till I was in my 40s. So a lot of these people that I'm opening doors for and stuff, I can't relate to them when they're talking about school districts and barbecues with the neighbors. But I can talk about return on investment and numbers and, more like, should we put a roof on this first? So it was a personality style kind of thing for me. And it was personality. So what I
Okay.
would say is to you out there, figure out your personality style, where you want to be. If you want to be on the register, you can do both, but where are you going to focus your energy? Kyle had a presentation a while back where he said he was talking about his early days with mobile homes. And he said, I decided I wanted to be a mobile home specialist. And that stuck with me. And that day I said, I decided I wanted to do commercial and investment properties. So make the decision and go with your personality style.
Way to go. I like that. And you just, I don't know if you recently listed a building in Walnut Creek, and then you mentioned on the call yesterday an off market multifamily. So can you tell us a little bit about like that point of contact, getting in touch with that owner, and how you went about getting the listing, especially seeing as it was your first multifamily listing?
Yeah, that was an open house.
Oh, sweet.
And not a multifamily open house. It was just a 2-bedroom house that happened to be about a block away. And the guy that's been managing it, and he's like, he's friends with the owners and stuff, and more than friends, he's like he's their guy now, or her guy now, because the husband passed away. He
Mhm.
was in the car business, so we just kind of started rapping at the open house, and it came up that the multi-unit, and she's 86 and might want to sell. And I said, I'm done with this open house at 3:00. I'll be there at 3:05. And
Nice.
we kind of just hit it off from there. But that was back in June, so I nurtured it for about 5 months, just checking in, seeing if I could help with anything. She was getting some surgeries. So yeah, it was a rapport and follow up is how I got that one.
Nice. And when you had the conversation about listing it, did you get any like objections because it was your first multifamily listing, or did that conversation never come up?
No, they wanted to list, but where I could do better then and going forward, and still I'm working on, is created an objection, and I should have done it with the price.
Okay,
Push
tell me
back
more about
hard
that.
enough. I've done one price reduction already. I might have to do another. So when you're in that conversation, especially when it's like it's a big deal, right? It'd be my first over $1 million deal
Yeah.
or $3 million deal. So you get a little excited and you want it.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't have let wanting it get in the way of getting it correct from the get-go, and I didn't do that. So that's something I could have done better. I should have had a little bit of a deeper price conversation and even create an objection, and so I could have something to overcome. And sometimes that builds a better relationship too.
Yeah, that's a
So
great point.
getting the
How do
listing
you
was easy, but it's easy because I don't know if I did it right.
Mm. No, I like that you're like reflective in that way. And I think part of the challenge is trying to find that balance between kind of pushing back on the price a little bit because you do want to get the listing. And obviously, like if it sells for more money, you're also going to make more money. So you're incentivized, but you also only get paid if it does sell. So, like going forward, how would you change that approach? Did you go
Going
in with
forward,
hard numbers?
I've got a little more experience, so I can draw
Okay.
on prior experiences and use those as case studies. But something I had then and I didn't think about, and everyone here on this call, no matter how long you've been with us, is the collective groups experience.
No.
And you can relate that to your own. Jose went and did this triplex, and he got these kind of offers at this price. You can do the third party validation
Yeah.
and use our team here as real world examples. With maybe a little bit of embellishment here and there.
Well, and just like you said, that people can use your story now when they go to list something, and they
Yeah.
can kind of talk about how pricing strategy makes a huge difference. I think one thing about multifamilies, and Kevin and I have talked about this a few times, is with a multifamily, if it's making money, the owners they don't have the same level of urgency maybe that a single family home seller has, because they're still making money on it. So sometimes they'll price it high and just kind of let it sit for a little bit and see what type of offers they get. So I think a lot of that too is going to be dependent on finding out like what's the motivation behind the sell. If someone's 86 years old, I'm sure they want to stop managing the property. But did they become a management client as well, or just a listing?
Just a listing.
Okay.
I haven't
And
talked about management at all. I don't want to manage.
and how is that, like, how was it listing that multifamily property? How is that differed? I know you had multiple single family home listings. How is it differed for you working on like the commercial side as opposed to the single family home?
That's a good question. I thought about. I'm not sure if there's a whole lot of difference, honestly.
Okay.
Maybe just getting more documentation, commercial side, so you can have the numbers and work that up or let guys like you said earlier work it up themselves. I mean, I took all the pictures myself with my phone, but I've done that for a residential listing too.
Oh, nice.
Get it up on the market and get it sold. Honestly, I didn't notice much difference. And if someone can point some out, maybe there's something that I'm overlooking.
Kevin, you got anything to add to that on the listing of multifamily side?
Okay, I mean, I have a couple things to touch on. I don't want to. I want to stay in. The hardest part for me for listing a multifamily is unit access with the tenants.
Hmm.
So it creates kind of an obstacle of like, well, what am I going to show? If it's a large multifamily unit, hopefully I have a vacancy. If I do have a vacancy, I might, and we're managing it, I might tell CNC, hey, jack the rent up $300, and so it's a slower vacancy. Leave us a show unit. Or like you try to sweeten up one or two tenants and make really good friends with them so they are always compatible letting you in and keep it clean. But I think the showings themselves are a lot more complicated with a multifamily. I think the pressure part of it, and I wanted to touch on the point that Max made about pricing. And I'll give an example of property I have coming to market tomorrow or Friday. And it was a triplex. And the guy hit me up, hey, thinking about selling. And I talked him through. And I told him, hey, we talked about pricing. What do you think it's worth? I said, I think it's worth 1.4. He said, well, I'd really like to try 1.7. So, well, the great thing about multifamily is if it doesn't sell and we could be on the market for another year, you're still collecting rent. So I'm fine with that. I said, but then if you ever get serious and actually want to sell it, we could always adjust down. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah. And we were kind of thinking about it, and I signed a listing agreement for 1.7. And right beforehand, he's like, so what do you think it's worth? I said, like I said, 1.4. So, all right, let's list it for 1.5. Okay, again, when you want to get serious, we'll move it to 1.4. So, there's not that pressure of vacancy cost on that either.
I think like one thing, and it might come with experience, but there's a lot of confidence on your end to like jokingly have that conversation of when you get serious, we get listed at this price. How do you feel like as a newer agent, did you have that level of confidence, or is that something that you've just kind of had as you've gained more experience working with people?
That's actually a fantastic question. And this is specifically from the commercial side of things. And I think this has helped me in residential a ton. The more you deal with the commercial agents, there's an air of bravado of I don't give a fuck. I'm the best. I'm the smartest person in the room. Everything I say is gospel that a lot of commercial agents carry. You talk to a residential agent, a lot of the time they're responding to you in 5 seconds. A commercial agent might respond to you in 5 hours or the next day. uh they just don't, they have this whole like, it creates this gatekeeping effect. But if you can harness that approach, and again, like, numbers don't lie, so we're selling numbers, and even you have a conversation like, well, yeah, at this price point, we're really just hoping to find a 1031 exchange buyer that's getting lucky. Hope or and get lucky. Sometimes it'll happen. Somebody's stuck with 5 days left in 1031 exchange, and sure, they'll call us and overpay us because they're giving it to Uncle Sam. So that's what we're shooting for at this price. And you can tell them, like, literally, that's the strategy. Our strategy is to put it on the market and hope to get lucky. And it might happen. Or we can get more serious and apply to the broader scope. Because at this point, at this number, it's not cash flowing. So who is going to buy it? You wouldn't buy it for this number. But I mean, I guess I'm kind of digressing. I think that level of confidence that you might need to fake before you make it is really helpful.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I wholeheartedly agree. The commercial agents usually feel very very special about themselves, and they've dealt with that quite a bit. I wanted to ask Daniel a couple things about working with investor buyers. And you shared this a few times, but you have like a really great set of questions that you ask an investor when you first get in contact, whether that's a PM lead or a bigger pockets lead. Can you go over kind of those questions that you ask to determine a buy box? I think it's a really important thing to get right when we first get in contact with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want to buy? That's kind of the key, right? What type of properties, how many units, what do you want to buy? How are you planning on purchasing it as well? So like
What
kind of what your budget is, what metrics do you want to achieve? How are you planning on purchasing it? Why would you want to buy this specific property type? That's basically what I like to get into. And so that way, when I'm doing my analysis, I can figure out exactly kind of what they're looking for.
And what about, because sometimes when I get these bigger pockets leads that come through, they don't know all of those questions, right? They might know a couple of them, or they're listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast. They're interested in investing, but they might not know how they're going to pay for it or what those options are. So, how do you go about being that person to help them find out what that is? And do you ask, if they don't know the question or the answer to the question, like, what is the conversation looking like next?
Basically, just giving education, on how it all works and what different types of finances are out there, like DSCR loans, things like that, and just giving them more knowledge on what other investors have done in the past. That's basically it. Yep.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's really common, especially with bigger pockets investors, to have people that have a lot of enthusiasm and not a lot of knowledge. And I think that's great, because when you're able to take somebody like that and be that person that helps give them that extra level of information to kind of turn them from somebody who's excited but lacks the knowledge to somebody who has enough knowledge and maybe the resources like lenders and things like that to move forward, that's probably someone that's going to work with you for a long time period.
Yeah, and that's kind of the talk track too, is, hey, I'll help you build your portfolio. I'll help you make smart decisions, things like that.
And how do people ask questions about your experience with investing, and when you first had started having these conversations, how did you handle those conversations?
Just brought back my past experience with Marcus and Millichap.
Okay.
Even though I didn't do any transactions,
Yeah.
it's still, I learned, everything, and I've been learning as I go.
Yeah.
We learn more every day. New programs get available, things like that. And,
Yeah.
something that's very important too is to figure out, are they income based or are they equity based, meaning on how they want to purchase? Because there's
Yeah, that's a
so
great
many
point.
different reasons on how to get into real estate, not just one.
That's a great point. And I think to your earlier point, I always thought when I was getting started, and I think this is like one of the bigger fears of people when they start having these phone calls or meetings, is that people are going to ask them, "So how long have you been working with real estate investors?" And I've never gotten that question.
No.
And I think it's important to, like Kevin said, kind of fake it till you make it a little bit, because you're not going to know all the answers to everything. But you can get them like really quickly, and I think there's a lot to be said for having that enthusiasm and a little bit of confidence, and like Max said, leaning on the team, because our team has worked with a lot of investors. Kevin's worked with a lot of investors. You, Max, Don, a lot of other people on this call have worked with investor clients, so we can lean on that experience and just talk about what the team does, and then you're kind of deferring the question a little bit. You're answering it, but we do have access to all these people who are doing investor deals. Another thing we talked a little bit about yesterday, and then you and I kind of talked this morning, but about reawakening your database, and wanted to see how you're doing that when you're trying to re-engage investors, like bigger pockets leads or maybe PM leads that were interested in expanding their portfolio. How do you go about re-engaging them and then keeping them engaged? Is it just sending them properties regularly, or how are you making sure that you're following up with these investor clients?
Well, so like at the end of the year last year, in end of November, I just sent text to everyone, and saying, "Hey, it's time to. We still have time to buy another property. Still have time to write off the depreciation, something like that." And so I got a few people, but nobody actually transacted. And then, what I've been doing is just, "Hey, are you still interested in investing in the Fresno Clovis area?" Just little text like that. And then there was a specific one because there's a kind of a niche property in Fresno where you could buy a home in the front, rehab it, and then build ADUs in the back.
Mm.
And so that's a text that I sent out as well. So to see if they're interested in that type of property.
Nice. And how do you, I know you were sharing like a while back about a client that you had that was looking for multifamily properties, and you were having a challenge finding properties in your immediate area that fit like the criteria, like the cap rates you were looking for. What does the conversation look like to help them broaden their horizons when they're buying something based off numbers? Like, are you the one that brings up other opportunities outside of your immediate area? I find a lot of times investors have a specific, like, oh, I'm looking in San Jose or I'm looking in Fresno. And when you show them other opportunities, sometimes they're open to it. And it's a good way to get them to buy something that pencils out, even if it's not in their immediate market.
Well, I would say, more clients have more money are living in different towns, right? So they're living in San Jose, they're living in the Bay Area, they're living Santa Clara, and so they want to come in for the price points, right? So they're looking for income-based properties, right? So we're looking at 6.5 to 7.5 cap rates, value-added properties, things like that. And so sometimes those aren't always available in my market. So we have to look for other markets, or we look for different ways to buy it, different creative financing stuff that we could talk about.
Yeah, it's one thing that you do really well that I would like to get better at is having those financing conversations, talking about the seller credits, those different types of loans. How did you learn that information? Was it speaking with lenders? Was it just doing your own research? Or like, how do you get to the point to where you feel like you could confidently have those conversations and you're speaking truths rather than?
Yeah, just following experts, asking questions like on Facebook groups and or Instagram, things like that. A lot of research, Chat GPT, things like that. So basically just trying to stay up on all the knowledge,
Yeah, that's a great point. Max, I had a question for you surrounding your success with converting PM leads into sellers and working with them. And just curious, like, what's that process look like for you, and why do you think you've done such a great job at converting some of those leads into sellers?
I changed my approach to, I approach it as a listing lead first and a PM lead second. So I'll look up values, history on the property, and comps, and have that all ready, and then do, of course, a rent cast for the rents. But I'll ask, 3 times, beginning, middle, and end, about listing the property for sale, so it sticks in their head, and that seems to be bearing some fruit. I've got 2 listing appointments tomorrow for PM clients, actually.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I got some 4 reach outs here, property management clients that are interested. So I think I can lock up a couple of those too. But yeah, just changing my mindset to it's a listing lead. It's not a property management lead. Of course, I'll be happy to manage the property and get $1,000, but I'd be much happier to list it and help you move along to the next chapter, whether that's another property, cashing it out and sending the kid to college, or whatever you want to do. And that's something else is get there. How long are you going to rent this out for? Forever? What are your plans for it? What if we cut and run now? What's that?
Well, that was kind of
that check in your pocket. So yeah, just to kind of let them see both sides of the story of the outcome.
I think that's great, and that was kind of leading into my next question, which is, like, how do you have that conversation of maybe converting some of these people who are selling, maybe they own one single family home? How do you have that conversation about turning into that real estate investor? Like, are we taking this money and putting it to work? Do you feel like you do a great job at that, or is that something that you want to work on?
I'm working on it, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I need a few more under my belt to be able to comment on it really.
Okay.
I mean, you have the best story that I've heard so far. You know, when you convert those people into the five units, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I've used that story.
Yeah.
You. So thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I mean, for me, one of my thoughts is a lot of these people don't know that they're real estate investors. Especially the single family homeowners. They own a property. Maybe they bought a second one during COVID, or a lot of people inherited properties and they don't consider themselves real estate investors. They just own a rental. And so part of that, like that mindset shift the perspectives.
Yeah, and then pointing out how owning a property can be a pain in the ass when you're renting it out
Yeah,
can have two benefits. Number one, they start thinking about selling it so they don't have the pain in the ass. Or number two, they think about how much property management helps them with the pain in the ass. So
yeah.
it doesn't kill your deal either way. So make it hurt, you know, and then provide a path to the healing, which is
Yeah, emphasize the
your
pain
property.
points and solve the pain points. Those are
Mhm.
discovery call basics right there. I remember from the beginning training is you
I'm
really
a
want to lean into
fundamentals
those.
guy, man. Don't get too fancy.
It pays off.
Mhm.
Multiple listings, multiple listing appointments. It's nice to see you find success like that. And I think that's something you do incredibly well, which is like keeping that end goal in mind with these people. And a lot of times, because you're a numbers guy too, you see like, hey, the numbers aren't great on this. You know, if you own a single family home, maybe your mortgage isn't that bad, but you can make so much more money doing something else. And a lot of people just haven't thought about it because maybe they think, oh, that's like I'm having a hard time with one unit, right? They called you because they're managing one property and they're having a challenge. And so if you can kind of talk about how we solve that problem for them, that makes a big difference. Like their pain point is they're having a hard time with one property. Why would they want to switch into owning multiple properties or more units? So one thing I always lean into is like we help you with selling the property, buying the next property, and managing the property. So you're really not doing anything rather than watching those numbers change. Kevin, I had another question. We asked a little bit about your analysis on properties. I know you've worked with some like fix and flippers, and that's another part of like the investing world that we haven't talked a lot about on these calls. How like how does that differ than working with a multifamily buyer? And then how involved are you getting with those clients from a like providing vendor, suggesting which items are highest return on investments? Like, what does that process look like for you? Because I think there's a lot of different ways we could be working with investors.
It's a great question. First, in dealing with flippers, like once you identify a flipper, that's fantastic. And again, you identify their buy box. What are they looking for? The one thing I'm bringing to the table is a deal with meat on the bone. And so I want to be able to look at a property and look for an outlier and think like, okay, this is a 1.5 property, but the neighboring properties sell for, let's just call it 2.5. Okay, well, there's meat on the bone there. How much would it cost, ballpark figure, to get this house from 1.5 up to a value of 2.5? Let's call it 300, 400 grand. Okay, you got a 600 grand spread there, not counting commissions, closing costs. Just going to blast that to every fix and flipper I have. Just be like, boom, one with meat on the bone. Let me know if you want more info. I'm just going to leave it at that. Meat on the bone, ARV 2.5, purchase price 1.5. And then if they'll say like, oh, not enough meat on the bone for me at this price, it'll be like, cool. Then what price is it worth to you? What do you mean? Would you buy it for 1.3? Yeah, I'd buy it for 1.3. Okay, can you come up with hard money and close in 10 days? Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's write it up. I mean, I don't,
Um,
like, right? Because it's a numbers game, it's a shotgun game. And if the numbers are too good, make it obvious, sure, we'll go ahead and write it. In terms of try to remain relatively hands off during the acquisition process, I will make some analogies of, I mean, this is one I like to use, especially if it's an investor that's newer to the area. I will describe who the end user is. I'll describe to them what kind of car you would expect to see the person drive up in. And I'll say like, hey, this is it. The person, the end user, and this is going to pull up in a BMW, or opposed to the end user of this is going to have, fucking Ferrari in the garage, right? That's gonna equate to the level of appliances you want. That's gonna equate to the level of finishes you want. Uh, I'll walk through and say, and I'll tell them, okay, guys, this is it's just going to require an engineered hardwood floor and this property, of course, but realistically, you can get away with Thermador. It doesn't need to be yada yada yada, what have you. Like, or hey, in this neighborhood, you can get away with a Frigidaire. This is not necessarily at this level. I'll give them rough details like that. I'll usually check in once or twice during the flip process, go drive by, give them words of encouragement. But I stay the hell out of it during the flipping process because honestly, I learned my lesson the hard way by giving advice that they didn't interpret correctly and panned out incorrectly, bit me in the ass, and then it's just more things for them to blame me on. And then, yeah, people, a lot of the time, I feel like most of the people that are doing flips, they don't want to hear your opinion. They want the facts, and they don't want you to be told what to do. So
Yeah.
I try to I try to stay in my lane, if that makes sense, actually, and not get over involved.
No, I think that's a great point, and it kind of lends to what you were saying earlier about working with people and them doing their own analysis, right? The flippers, you can say like, "Oh, rough ballpark is going to cost you this," and the flippers are going to be like, "No, it's going to cost this because of X, Y, Z," and they may have their own crews and they know their pricing. So, and I get into that all the time because I used to be a general contractor. So I will always tell people like, "Oh, it'll probably cost this," and they're like, "Oh no, it'll cost this," and it's staying in your lane is a great point, and I think it's one of those ways to kind of, as a newer agent looking to work with fix and flippers, it's helpful to know that you don't need to know everything. You don't need to know how to ballpark the cost of everything because your investor is going to know how to do that.
They're not hiring us to be their guide in the flipping process. They're hiring us to provide them opportunities and to see an opportunity and to close said opportunity for them. So, I mean, I'll get an opportunity, whether it's my listing or a listing I see on the market or something I heard about off market. I'll provide them the rough details and say, you want more info? Let's go. I mean, it's bullet points, and then I'll make sure they can get it. I'll win the deal for them. That's how it happens.
No,
That's my
that's
value
great.
bring to the table.
I think so. One question I would have about that is you talk about finding deals that have meat on the bone. How did you start doing that? Because I think that's the challenge. When you find an on-market property, at least the flippers that I talk to, like they don't want me to send them on-market opportunities because they say they see those. And so for the off markets, I'm just speaking for myself. Like I think one of our best sources for off markets is for rent by owners. One of the challenges that I see with for rent by owners is that a lot of times the properties are in at least rentable condition. So these flippers that are looking for like an ugly house, and you'll see some of those like for rent, but how do you find properties that have meat on the bones, on or off market?
Couple things here. Number one, we've all heard, hey, I don't want you to send me on market properties. There's a difference between having MLS links sent to you on an on market property and receiving a text message of a 2-minute video walkthrough where the agent went around, walked you around the property, gave the highs and lows, gave a price point, texted it to you and said, hey, I have the inside track on this. This is the spread. Want to take a poke? Boom.
No.
I've done the legwork for you. I'm delivering it. And I'm not telling you, hey, I'm bringing you this as like I need a pony to ride on this race. You want to be my pony because I'm going to win the race. That's a different presentation altogether than, hey, look at this thing on MLS. I'm doing Zillow's job. No, show up to the fucking property. I'm going to go give you my quick analysis. Hey, boom, boom, boom. This is the spread. This is the acquisition cost. This is where our pretend exit is. I would assume that this is going to be boom. I like it because of this. I think because this. The end user is going to be this. Boom, send. How do you look for a good flip? I mean, Sorry, pull up Redfin real quick, would you please, and do share screen. Or actually, I can share screen. Somebody give me a city.
Just San Jose.
Okay.
Damn, 734 homes for sale in San Jose right now.
I'm going to go through. Hold on. I wish I would have prepared for this just a little bit, but let's go single family home. And sure, I'm just going to leave all of this done. See 150. Get all this stuff out of the way. And where do I go to my list? I haven't done this on Redfin for a while, but God, all these fucking notifications. For sale. Okay. Okay. Square foot. Price per square foot. Okay. You want to know what my best flip of the day is right now in San Jose? 200 Southside Drive.
Yeah, seems really cheap.
Yep. Price per square foot is 121 compared to the next cheapest 408, 452, 490. Boom. I would then go take this and send this to 10 different flippers. If I thought it was really, really good looking at the pictures of it, I'd drive by it. I do like, okay, that's not one. That's a pre-built. Okay. This is my next one. 408. I don't know anything about San Jose. This isn't my market, but if let's say I looked at this and I knew the general vicinity and I thought, hey, I think this could sell for 2 million if done something XYZ, I'd set up an appointment, I'd do a quick little video synopsis, keep it under 2 minutes so I could text it, do a ARV, all etc. Boom. And I just copy and paste, send that text out to 10, 15 people, whoever I have, and then say, let me know. I got the inside track. Let me know if you want more info.
Yeah, talk track is they're selling a piece of land with approved plans for 1.5. You could buy this place for 1.2 on the same street.
Yeah, whatever you want. I mean,
Yeah.
again, this just lets us know what our best, the price per square foot is usually our best one. Now, if we want to get really more tangible with this, we can zoom in more and you could look for outliers in a certain area. Okay, let's say we were specifically looking in, God, I got all this screens up. Let's say we're specifically looking in this zone right here, because this is our buy box. Okay, what's our biggest outlier? Okay, this one's 103 days on the market. Cheapest price per square foot by a wide margin in San Jose, Talman. Chances are what I would do, I'd call listing agent, see what the deal is, why isn't it selling? And then my presentation to the flippers would be like, hey, I've been dialoguing with this seller. It's 130 days on the market stale. Here's the problem. I think we can acquire for 1.2. So now I'm bringing them new information, providing value, not just like, hey, I'm sending you a Zillow link. Here's a video. I think I can get this for 1.2 ARV, 2 million. Having walked through it, I think it's going to take 150 to get there. Boom, done, done, done. The hardest part is getting the flippers. Once you have a Rolodex of flippers, it's super easy to find inventory.
Once you get a couple deals under your belt, you should be getting spam messages from flippers pretty regularly.
Yeah. So
and don't just disregard them because I've written offers for a couple of those. So they are real people.
I get anywhere from 15 to 20 of those text messages a day of like, we'll buy beat up properties. But realistically, this is a people business. So if you build your people that like and trust you, or will at least open a text message from you, or watch a video from you, if you can build that tribe of people that know who you are, or at least will respond to you, then you can service those people in terms of investing. And start small and work big from there. That's really what my suggestion point is. And don't spend 45 minutes on or 2 hours all day on one project. Spend an hour and a half on it. send it out to 15, 20 people so you can, because it's a numbers game too. It's people business and a numbers game.
Yeah, you never know when it's going to be the right property for the right person.
Correct.
For everybody there, and then we'll open it up for other questions. But what's one piece of advice that you would give to the newer agents who haven't worked with investors but want to start?
Decide you want to start. Make your in your head. I am an investor focused agent, because just like riding your motorcycle very fast, you don't look right in front of you. You look farther up the road, right? Same thing. I am a commercial listing agent. Just start thinking that way, and your focus is going to shift up towards that. That's the best analogy I could think of.
That's great, Max.
I agree with Max as that being the first step. I would say step 2 to that, always have a deal in your back pocket. Whether you found something online, whether it's for flippers and or multifamilies, have a deal, make sure it's still there once every week, and keep it in the back of your mind. And it's your favorite property on the market, because once you make that decision, hey, this is what I do, you'll be talking to somebody at your kid's soccer game, and it'll be like, yeah, I really focus on investments. Oh, really? What's good out there? If you're like, well, what do you want to buy? I could send you an MLS, yada, yada, yada. You come off like a creepy salesman. If you're like, oh, 2nd Street, 102 2nd Street, the fourplex, 5 cap rate, thing's the best right now. If I didn't have my capital on other projects, I'd already have this in escrow. Oh, really? Yeah, I've been looking to somebody to buy it. You want to go take a look tomorrow? Yeah. Boom. You just good. You're in. Just have one in the chamber at all time.
That's a great point.
I'd say just send properties. Keep bombarding them with lots and lots of properties, and then in the email just say, hey, if you're not interested, what's it missing? That's the key question. Then they're like, oh, it needs to have this, and then you could fine tune your search a little bit more.
I like that question quite a bit, and I've tried to do that with people. Like, I had one guy who was a no start in PM, and I started just sending him properties, and he haven't bought anything yet, but he is active. He's like, keep sending them to me, like, we'll find the right one. And so I think it's sending them to people, like, they don't have to give you the green light to send properties either. If you know that they own some properties and they're investors, send them something that seems interesting. Luckily we have the deal of the week going. But if you see something that's like, personally, like, this is why I love this property, send it over to them. It doesn't take a long time to send someone a property. If it takes a really long time to send someone a property, you're probably overanalyzing it, and it doesn't need to be that deep. And then if they ask for more info, that's when you do your deep dive, and when you present more information. So appreciate all you guys chiming in. Is there any questions just from the group that anyone wants to ask?
Yeah,
I had a quick one. No, go ahead, Wilder.
Yeah, when you're dealing with fixing for people, how do you make sure you're still in the loop? Because if you send them a property and they like it, couldn't they just get anything going on their own and just shove you out of the entire process? Or how do you lock yourself in to be their agent?
It's a great question. So 9 times out of 10, I don't think that's really in jeopardy, right? So 9 times out of 10, you're dealing with somebody. They're going to work with the person that brought it to them. They're not trying to burn sources. That 1 out of 10 situation where they didn't lock you in, they cut you out of the transaction, they just taught you a lesson. That lesson is you can't build a business with unreliable people. If I had to worry every single time that one of my investors was going to be poaching me and looking to cut me out of every freaking deal, and that was my whole entire Rolodex, then I wouldn't have a business. I want to work with people that want to work with me. I just got burned. I gave a dude an off market in Pebble for 1.2. I kept following up with him. When's it ready? When's it ready? I saw it posted on MLS with a different agent a couple months ago. You know what? Never get another one of my deals. He taught me a lesson not to work with him ever again. I had a buyer that wanted it, and I knew where all the bodies were buried on the property, and I talked them out of it. So, and it's still dying on the market. And I made sure to, it looks like you guys didn't fix XYZ that I remember. So yeah, I'm not living my business based on fear of getting cut off of deals. I'm doing the best I damn can. I want them to work with me. I know my value. And if they don't want to work with me and they're the kind of person that, is going to try to cut me out of every opportunity, tell you what, then I don't want to work with them either. Problem solved.
Well, I think to your earlier point as well, it's a people business, and most of the investors know this. That if they get a reputation for burning agents, people aren't going to bring them deals. They need you as much as you need them. They need people like you to go find them deals, and usually they reciprocate by letting you list it as well. At least that's usually the agreement. And there'll be some people like Kevin just mentioned that don't do it, but then they get cut out, and you don't use them ever again.
It's not hard. Once you get the hang of it, it's not hard to find people. The key is finding the people and then bringing the properties. Everything is replaceable in this process. The people are replaceable. The properties are replaceable. You learn the skill sets over time. None of this is rocket science. So if I get burned by somebody, they're dead to me. I'm never going to contact them again. They could call me up and, hey, will you do? No, I won't. I don't want to work with you anymore. I don't trust you. Goodbye.
Yeah, that's great. Christian asked the question, does anyone have experience working with developers and how does that change your process? I can answer that a little bit. I've been shopping it off market for a couple months now, and it's a development play. And the real difference is just like the project that they're going to do is a little bigger. So they have more questions and they need to do a little more digging. There hasn't been a huge difference between that and someone looking to flip a property. The developer is probably going to tear it down and rebuild something else. So it's kind of looking at zoning and what's allowed on the property. But other than that, it's kind of the same thing. Like you send them a property. Most of the developers do flips too, unless there's someone who's like really looking for that tear down, rebuild kind of value add stuff. But you send them the property and what you think it could be worth or what the end goal is there, and then they will go through that whole process, kind of run their numbers, see what's feasible, and see what makes sense to them. Anyone else got some feedback on working with developers?
If you're dealing with somebody that's a raw land developer and this is their first deal that they're going to be raw land developing, don't waste your time. Don't work with somebody unless they are experienced, have done it before. There's so much unknowns. Land use laws.
I did that. I can second the motion. Don't waste your time.
Yeah. And you know what? You get paid less for raw land anyway. It's so freaking complicated. If you have a savage investor that's done it, been around the block, cool, go for it. But they're going to know more than you are anyway. You're just writing a contract, but they better have their full team, the land use attorneys. They better have their design team. Like they better know what the hell they're doing. I can't tell you how many times I get called from agents on the team. I have this person or this group of people. They're thinking about buying 5 acres and they're all going to build a house. And yeah, where should I start? Like, hang up the phone. Like it's never going to happen, guys. You can waste 2 or 3 months on this and spend a lot of time spinning your wheels. See if they'll pay you hourly instead of commission. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think this is like ties back to the conversation we had yesterday where we were talking about it's important to vet your clients just like they need to vet you. Right. So sometimes if people are looking for certain things, like, have you done this before? Like Daniel asked those questions. What are you looking for? How are you going to buy it? Have you ever bought a property like this? And if not, then especially if it's like a land use deal, then maybe you kind of shy away a little bit, or you understand that it's something that could be like a lot of sunk time. But it's the same with multifamily and stuff. That determines how much handholding there's going to be, how much teaching you're going to need to do, and how likely it is to kind of bring a deal across. I think there's good opportunities to work with new investors and help them start and establish their portfolios and grow it. But you also have to kind of use your best judgment on who is a new investor that's serious and has qualifications, and who's someone who like listened to a podcast and got super excited and wants to start talking to agents, but like there's no way they're going to be able to buy something. And you get to those answers by having conversations. Tucker had a question, right?
I did. It was basically the same as Wiley's.
Okay.
But another like guy I've talked to before is like open to me sending him off markets, but like previous in the conversation, he was like, I do have like an agent that I'm always like that's always looking for me and working with. So like, is it still just a 9 out of 10? Like, you just got to take your shot, send him all the information, and kind of just go above and beyond, like do the video thing.
I think they'll probably, if you bring them the property they end up moving forward on, they probably will work with you. I think most fix and flip guys, most investors have a lot of agents that are sending them properties all the time. That's why they're reaching out to people. And they, like, if you're an investor and you could look for yourself and spend all your time looking for properties, or you can have 10 to 15 agents who are looking at properties and keeping their kind of ear to the street and sending you everything, like, which one would you do? Right. So I think the point is just be the one that finds them that deal. And you're not going to get someone like that to sign like an exclusive agreement to work with you, but just send them properties and make sure it's a property that works for some other people and get it over to them and demonstrate that value. And, you know, I don't think, like, the way I look at it, like, nobody is obligated to give me their business. I need to earn it. And so part of earning it is demonstrating that value and hunting for things and finding stuff that will be of interest to those people. And then once you do it, then you have a higher likelihood of working with them again in the future.
Got it.
Don has one thing. I know of an off-market commercial development mixed-use opportunity. What suggestions on finding those developers who can handle large deals? Don, one thing I would do is just like look at developers in your area or wherever the property is. For this property, I've been shopping off market in Atherton. I looked up Atherton developers and called them and to see if they were looking for new projects. So that'd be like the way I go about it. Anyone else got advice on how to find developers who can handle stuff like that? Kyle said batch leads, look for people who close cash. I like that. Social media and stuff. And yeah, I
Full
think
message board, right?
yeah, send it out to the team and see if anybody has anyone looking in the area.
Go find the people that have sold similar properties in the past. So the finished product, because then if you go see something, whatever your comp is, look at who that seller is, and then reach out to that seller, skip trace that seller, then say, "Hey, I saw your project on yada yada yada. If I brought you something similar, another project, would you be interested in doing it again? Cool, I got it off market. Boom, yada yada yada."
Nice. That's a great point. I'm about to do that with that Atherton property. I think we're a few minutes over, so thanks everyone for your time today. Thank you, Daniel, Max, Kevin, for chiming in and being there to kind of answer these questions. And it's been great learning from you guys, and I hope it was useful and valuable for everybody else.